Hey guys, Joshy here, BJ on Race Day, back once again for the BJ on Race Day team. Unfortunately, flying solo tonight. Bogan had some work commitments this week, so it'll just be basically he sent through his quick video earlier in the week, just running through a recap and going through the ladder leaders and such for the BJ on Game Day League. For me, I'm just going to run through a few results from last week, and we'll run through the team reveal for this week. Just a quick shout out to Dan from PointsBet. I've been working with the guys from PointsBet. You guys might have seen a few of my posts come up with regards to the fields, trying to add in Supercoach prices, obviously just to make it a little bit easier for people to field their teams and their stables. It is a little bit hard. Obviously, the odds and things like that don't really reflect, I guess, what the Supercoach prices are in some circumstances. And we had a little bit of delays this week with a few horses not being in the Supercoach scoring and things like that. Well, the pricing anyway. So the first two races in Sydney, the Gym Crack and the Breeders, we didn't have any horses in there. The expectation from me, look, I said it in one or two of my posts, I thought all these horses coming in as first starters would be 50k, even playing field. Now, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they have priced these horses based on their market odds. Considering you had a horse like ER Dash last week in a Group 1 at 50 grand, look, I think we sort of, not that we deserve an explanation, but I'd really like to know what they were thinking, because you've got basically the favourite in each race priced at 150k. I'm sure me, like a lot of other people, were hoping that these horses would be in the 50k, maybe 75, that we could get a few of those cheaper ones in a Group 3 races like those and spend a little bit more money elsewhere. That said, it's basically meant we've had to sort of change up our teams, change up our stables. You're really going to find it hard to get any of those high-priced horses in this week, like your Mystic Journeys, Santa Ana Lanes, Hartnell's, horses like that, just because that 475, 500,000, it's really, really hard to find 10 horses to fit in the stable and include horses at those kinds of prices. So, look, guys, what I thought I'd do, enough of that. I just thought I'd run through last week's results. Typically mine, obviously we've gone through the ladder with the BJ on Game Day with the few guys there. Obviously well done to Blakey. It was a different Blake, obviously not Rangas de Janeiro. This is Gio. Gio actually comments a fair bit on our NRL stuff, so well done, Blake. And I've seen there, mate, based on the Facebook profile, looking sensational at the racetrack, mate. It seems like you get to the track fairly often, mate, so good to have you in the group, buddy. But my results from last week, round 1, I scored 251. It was enough to put me in 1690, so 1,690 a spot out of about 45,000 runners. Now, my team last week wasn't exactly as I displayed it. I went away from having so many horses in, the Golden Rose. Unfortunately, one of the Golden Rose ones I picked, obviously, yes, that was one of the ones I dropped. He finished second, almost got up. It was a great fighting effort from Bivouac, so he performed quite well. And so I dropped yes. I did keep Bivouac. I did keep Exceedance, who ran third in that race, and obviously, yeah, Dash was a good cheapie. My captain for last week, I went with Homesman, who narrowly went down to Blackheart Bart in a cracking finish. Obviously, great return to racing there for Blackheart Bart. The once retired middle distance stayer was absolutely sensational. So, very, very nice effort from there, but no disgrace from Homesman. Sat 3 wide the trip. Really had a horrid run, while most of his other rivals got some cushier runs on the rails and things like that. So, good effort from him. Guys, just a little bit of an update now. We've spoken in previous videos about horses backing up, racing from one week to the next. Out of all the horses that there were last week, there are only 4 horses backing up this week. a fewer scratch that were, but basically 4 horses that scored last week are backing up this week. I've actually got one of them in my team, so I'll run through that shortly. Yeah, it's a little bit harder to put a team together this week just because of those salary cap restrictions. Now, based on my team last week, my salary cap's gone up $100,000. I got a $50,000 rise from Bivouac, $25,000 from Homesman, and $25,000 from Shadow Hero, which is probably one of the most impressive winners of the weekend last weekend. Huge run there in that Group 3 race. Really sort of dominated and made himself favourite for the Derby coming up. But look, guys, let's get into the team reveals. Now, guys, as I say, with Bogan away, this will just be a straight-up video. Unfortunately, no graphics. He definitely does that side of things. We will be working, as I said, all those graphics that I've put up with PointsBet today and over the past 24 hours. We'll be doing that every week for every race. It is time-consuming, guys. Look, it's something that I haven't really worked with before. I am actually in control of the graphics, and by no means am I an IT genius. So, as I say, Dan from PointsBet is gracious enough to give me a hand. We basically reached out to each other. I was looking at sort of just getting a little bit more involvement from things like that. I think the correlation between the race odds and obviously the level of race, the grade of race, and the Supercoach odds, those three just go hand in hand. So I really wanted something a little bit easier than the system that Supercoach put together. When you've got 1,500 or so horses, it can really be hard to find some of those sometimes. Obviously, you've got the name search and things like that and filters and that, but yeah, sometimes you just sort of want to look through the horses that are in a certain race and such, and I'm finding that those sort of quick pages that we're putting together are just that little bit easier. So we'll continue to do that. We'll work on. I'll release a bunch more on Friday. It's Thursday night now that I'm doing this recording. I've probably done about 5 or 6 races so far, and we'll get the rest out for on Friday. But yeah, so look, let's jump into the stable reveal for this week. Now, I'm pretty happy with what I've got. There's a couple of horses that I'm not completely certain on, but as I say, I really have put them in based on the restrictions of money and where they sit in the markets in their races. So this week, guys, we've got Randwick and Flemington both on the Saturday. So there'll be no jockeys riding in 2 different places. There'll be no one day and then the next. This will all happen on the Saturday, and no doubt by sort of late evening Saturday night, the lines will be open again. You'll see the results and any changes there. There's one race this week that I think everyone should be targeting, and that is the Flight Stakes. Anyone at home, if you haven't checked yet, this is the first Group 1 at Sydney. Race 4 it is. There are only 6 horses in the field, and there are 2 very, very dominant market movers. So Funstar and Probabile. Basically, these 2 horses there was a nose between them last start, and another nose further back to Superstar Libertini. Look, these are very, very good up-and-coming horses. The mile, 1,600 metres, is something fresh for both of them, but it looks absolutely perfect for both of them. So, Funstar has been backed in the early markets into favouritism. I think when they first opened the market, they were $2.10 a piece. It's been backed into $1.80 in some markets, and Probabile is out to $2.30. But guys, both these horses are in my team. Both horses are priced at $175,000. Very much like the bargain basement Yao Dash last week. I think considering the fields, sizes of fields, the doubt behind some of the Group 1s and the results there, I think you have to have these 2 horses. The other 4 horses in this race are all priced $26 or more. Again, these were horses I were hoping might come in at that $75,000 mark based on class. There was one horse that was in the early SC prices, and that was Foxborough. It was priced at $75. The other 3 that won't have all come in that $100 to $125 range. So again, just that sort of money that makes it a little bit difficult to have them. Of the 4 runners outside of those, I do like St. Covet's Spirit. The Queanbeyan runner, Girls Are Ready, is quite good for Joey Cleary, and he's had plenty of success going to Sydney of late. So, but guys, the 2 lead runners in that, Funstar and Probabile, should just be too good. Look, beyond that, as I say, they're my first 2 picked. The 4 horses that raced last week, now one of those, as I said earlier, is in my team this week, and that is Gem Song. Now, a little bit disappointing for owners last week when he got run down, and comfortably run down. I think it was Mr. Seawolf. This is Gem Song is a horse that is very consistent. Priced at $275,000 for super coaches. Obviously, last week finishing second in a Group 2 didn't change its price. So I do like it. It is drawn well. A lot of the other chances in the Epsom are drawn wide. For example, Dreamforce, the favourite, or the one-time favourite, has drawn the outside barrier in barrier 20. Tiakau Shark has drawn barrier 15, I think. So a few of those chances have drawn out wide. Gem Song, I think, look, barrier 2 just gives it the option to end up wherever it likes. It has shown in the past it can be flexible in where it runs, whether it's on the speed, whether it comes from back in the field. The step up to 1,600 metres, third up, look, it does race fairly well fresh. The third up worries me a little bit, although it has won third up before. So I don't think you have to have too much hesitation in picking it based on those kinds of things. But the fact that the Epsom is such a large race or a large field, that's probably what does worry me. Randwick tends to have less track bias than Rosehill, so what we saw last week with the front runners, I don't think you'll see as much this week, so I don't think we've got to sort of worry about that. But basically, look, what do you got? 20 runners in the Epsom. We've got 1 scratching already with Eldorado Dreaming. Gem Song is currently a $12 shot. Look, I just think it's well positioned. Brendan Avdulla on board. Look, Chris Lee's very, very good horseman. Brendan Avdulla rides plenty of winners. I think he won the Sydney Premiership maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago. So doesn't ride probably as many Group 1 winners as your bigger jockeys like your Bowmans and your Bosses and Rawillas and Olivers and things like that. But definitely knows how to get a horse around the track. And look, the one thing about this race is Dreamforce has to lug around 57 kilos. As I say, one-time favourite, does have top weight. Most of the other horses in this race have got under 54 kilos. Gem Song's got 52 kilos, and then right down to horse number 20, they're all got 50 kilos and things like that. So anyone at home who doesn't sort of realise the weight on the back of these horses for the jockeys, you basically see anything such as a heavyweight is probably 58 and above. 55 to 57 is sort of your mid-range weight, and anything sort of that 53, 54 or under is a very, very lightweight. You will find some horses, now for example, in the Cox Plate later in the game, Cox Plate is a weight for age race, and 3-year-old horses get a massive weight advantage over older horses. Your older horses will have 56, 58 kilos. A horse like Seamus Award, now this was the only race I'm pretty sure it ever won, ran around with 48 kilos. It's basically, put a backpack on Usain Bolt and see how much faster he can run, put an extra couple of kilos in it, and that makes a difference. So, yeah, definitely, guys, the higher weights just make it a little bit harder, but that is what the classier horses get because they are better horses. So you put all these horses in a set even weight, and those classier horses will come out on top. Yeah, so Gem Song, that'll be my third one picked. The fourth one is Classic Legend. Now, this is again in another small, I guess, field race. Classic Legend has shown good ability, very, very good sprinter, runs in the likes of races where you find the Red Zells and things like that. Look, My only doubt here is there's a lot of horses. The reason I've basically taken Classic Legend and another horse that I'll mention in a second is because of that price range. There's a lot of horses in these good races that are 400, 450, 500, and you just can't fit them in. This is favourite in the race. I think it's even money in the race that's in the Premier Stakes. It's a Group 2 event. There's only 6 runners. So these are two races back to back in Sydney that have got 6 runners. But the class in this race is very, very good. This is probably one of the best 6-horse races that I've ever seen. Classic Legend, Osborne Bulls, Home of the Brave, Land of Plenty. Now, Home of the Brave and Land of Plenty are 109 rated horses. Very, very good horses in their own right. And they're the roughies at around 30 to 40 to 1. Graph and Brutal are both good up-and-coming horses. Probably haven't been on the scene as long and similar to Classic Legend. So look, basically, any one of these 6 could win. Classic Legend very, very much could run last. As silly as that sounds, look, it's $2.30 in markets at the moment. If it ran last, it wouldn't surprise me purely because this race is just full of class. But the fact that it's $2.30, it's a Group 2 race. There's only 6 horses in the field. Last still gets you points even if you lose money. And at 300,000, when everything else in the race is 350 or 400 plus, I'm inclined to take it and risk it. So these are some of the risks we're going to have to take. At the end of the day, you can't pick winners in every race. Last week was a huge week where basically a lot of those favourites won or finished first, second, or third. Doesn't always happen. Favourites run last, favourites run second last, whether it's a 6-horse field or an 18-horse field. So yeah, go with your gut on some of them. The tactics I'm basically using are trying to stay very, very low in the market with a lot of them, purely based on the fact that if the favourites do win, you don't lose any ground. So with that one there, so obviously that's the 4th horse picked. The next one I'm going to go with is in the Turnbull Stakes, and it is the 2nd favourite, an early market mover, and that is Mr. Quickie. This horse is trained by Philip Stokes, who is an Adelaide trainer, and so this horse started its career over there, has progressed through the grades. Basically wasn't one of those horses that jumped straight into a Group 1 or Group 2. Has definitely progressed through the grades. Travelled up to up to Brisbane for the Queensland Carnival earlier in the year and performed really quite well. So this is probably a horse that, while you've got a horse like Mystic Journey again in the field that's favourite at $500,000 for Supercoach prices, I think that's just a little bit too rich. Mr. Quickie, the form that it's in, it was absolutely motoring home behind Gadding and Mystic Journey about 3 weeks ago. I think at $3.90, again, similar Classic Legend, the fact that it's priced at $300K really, really puts it into my stable straight away. And I talked about that horse, Seamus Award, being a one-time Cox Plate winner, or a one-time winner, and that being the Cox Plate event. This horse is actually by that sire. So, yeah, well bred to run around Melbourne and things like that. Last start finished 3rd in the Mackay Diva Stakes. Just looking up the form here. Winner of the Queensland Derby last season, earlier in the year actually. Before that finished 3rd in the South Australian Derby, but wasn't disgraced. Did have a poor start and was a really, really big run. And before that, one at Caulfield, one at Mornington, 2nd at Caulfield. So, look, some really good sort of winning form. Its overall record, 14 starts, 9 wins, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. So, at 300,000, I reckon it's a good option to have in the team. So, that's that one there. We basically go from there. Actually, I'll just backtrack for a second on the Epsom. I've gone with Colding. So, basically, a New Zealand runner. The reason I've gone this $200,000. At the end of the day, it's really, really hard to find too many horses that are at those kinds of prices in the Group 1s, and it's well in the market. It's drawn sort of mid-range, so it's not too bad. And again, the form behind it is quite good, obviously, which is why it's one of the favourites. So, yeah, just with how my team's made up, unless I wanted to go some of those cheapies from the Group 3 races, which again, anything could win those, I've just sort of gone that Group 1 race. I really toyed with the fact of not having anything in the Metropolitan at all and not having anything in the Epsom. To give you an idea, guys, the Epsom handicap last year, so run over, sorry, not the Epsom, the Metropolitan handicap last year, run over 2,400 metres, was won by a horse for Chris Waller called Patrick Erin. It was a bit of a roughie that day, not too bad, I think it was about 20 or 30 to 1. This year, the defending champion is 150 to 1. The horse it beat by a nose last year, Brimham Rocks, is the $4 favourite in the race. So, look, guys, it's horse racing. Anything can win. A horse can fall. A jockey can fall off. A horse can get checked. We saw last week with a horse like Flit in Melbourne. This horse ran 8th or 9th, I think it was, and probably should have won by about 3 or 4 lengths. So, this can happen in horse racing. So, yeah, basically just see how you go and try and make the best team possible. Beyond that, once we get past Colding, another horse in the Metropolitan. Now, I've actually got 2 horses in the Metropolitan. One of them is Scarlet Dream, which was scratched from last week, which I've got my doubts about. I'm not too sure why. I'm hoping that it didn't need that run for its preparation this week in the Metropolitan. $225,000 for super coaches. It was actually the last one picked in my stable. I sort of fit everything else in around it, and it was just what I ended up going with. I may change it, but it's got good enough form, and we might just sort of, hopefully, with a low weight, it might run well. Another one I've taken out of this race, now I actually wrote up a little bit of a write-up earlier in the week on the BJ and Game Day Facebook page. So, guys, BJ and Game Day, jump on, follow the page, give us a like, give us a subscribe on YouTube. There'll be plenty more content coming out, guys, so always good to get you guys following us. But yeah, mentioned this horse earlier in the week, and that is Nerf Bosque. Now, this is a French horse, has had a few starts in Australia now, 3 starts, all over shorter distances than it likes. 1,400 metres it opened up. 1,600 metres. Last start was quite solid, over 2,000 metres. It ran cracking sectionals from, I think, about the 800 to the 600 last start, but then really petered off on its run. So I think from a fitness point of view, that would be benefiting it. It's only 175,000. It's a beautiful grey horse. My mother always said she loved the grey's horse. They either finish first or they finish last. So I'm hoping this one finishes first. It raced in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, which is basically the biggest race in the world, or behind the Dubai Cup or the Japan Cup, has long been considered one of the biggest races in the world. It's over 2,400 metres, which is the same distance as this. Now, the horse was not good. It got beat, I think, 20-odd lengths, ran 18th of 19 horses. But the race was won by the best horse in the world in Enable. A bit of an argument around what is the best horse in the world. You've got Enable, which is over in the UK, and you've got another horse called Almond Eye, which is out of Japan, which is actually in our Supercoach pricing. But yeah, look, good form over in the UK. Group 2 winner, Group 3 winner, Group 1 placed, and all over 2,400 metres at Longchamp, which is the venue for the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. So, look, guys, it's one that is around about 15 to 1 in the market. Take it at your own risk, but I'm hoping that this is the grand final that they've set it for. It could also be the Caulfield Cup in a couple of weeks' time, so I'm hoping that this is the one they want. It's probably more in the class that it deserves. The Caulfield Cup might get a little bit too hard. It's beautifully drawn in, I think, Barrier 1. So it'll settle back. It'll probably settle midfield, and I'm hoping it weave its way through traffic and hit the line strongly for a win. And then the last 2 horses I've picked now. The first race in Sydney is the Gimcrack Stakes. 2-year-old horses. Opens up the 2-year-old season. Group 3 race. 24 points to the winner. every horse having it first start. Now, all these horses in races 1 and 2 came out of the same trials, bunch of different trials. I think there's 1 or 2 that didn't, and they've come from the country, which they're long odds. But the Mark Newnham trained every rose in race 1. Look, I do like the favourites in these 2 races purely because of the history behind it. The second race is a little bit more even. The first race with the Every Rose favourite at $2.80. It has firmed in slightly since its opening quote. I do really like it. The trial was good. Beyond the trial, though, as I say, with the favourite sort of record in this, it's drawn well. I actually don't know who's on board. I hadn't checked who was riding. Bear with me 2 seconds. I'll quickly check. We've got Josh Parr on board. So Josh Parr rode Shadow Hero to the win last week there for Mark Newnham. Really, really impressive ride, and he knows how to sort of come from behind on these horses, and I think this horse will settle sort of, again, behind the leaders or midfield. It's drawn barrier 2, so very, very good chance. Now, the last horse I've picked, now this is again one that I don't know too much about. I've probably got to refer here to Jackson Brown, who's one of the boys who has the Supercoach Late Mail Racing Facebook page, so jump on and give that a like as well, guys. And that's Miami Bound. Last race in Melbourne is the Group 2 Edward Manifold Stakes. A lot less prize money than a couple of the other races, but still holds Group 2 status. It is currently the favourite for it at $3.10. Now, it is a massive field. I have no confidence in that tipping whatsoever. At Melbourne, a race like that can be won by anything. So, really, the reason I've got it in there is because it is that favourite, and because it is a Group 2 race. If the 2-year-old races in Sydney were Group 2s, I would probably take one of those ahead of it. But that chance to get that few little more points, I think is all worth it, and taking a horse like that. So just checking here, Danny O'Brien trained, Damien Oliver on board, has won its last 2 starts. Very impressive New Zealand bred horse. So guys, I haven't actually picked a jockey yet. I obviously, just with the timing wise, not having horses in the field and things like that, I just haven't gone through the jockeys just yet. I've been worrying more about the horses, so I'll let you guys know via comments on who I pick as my jockey. I did have James McDonald last week, so he scored the top with 11 points. I think a lot of people might have picked Karen McAvoy. Probably had a better book of rides, Karen McAvoy, but yeah, sometimes that's it. Jockeys just get informed just like horses. So the last thing I just wanted to go through was Captain Funstar. I think Funstar will beat Probabeel in the Flight Stakes. The fact that it's a 6-horse race, I think it's the safest way to go. The horse is into $1.80 already. I think it just comes down to a coin flip between those two, whoever people captain, either Funstar or Probabeel. I think if you go anywhere else, unless you have some inside information, I think you're really risking a lot of points there. So yeah. But that's it, guys. There's a bit of a run through. As I say, everything will be back to normal next week. We're going to get Bogan back in with all the graphics, everything like that. As I say, it's great to have the PointsBet team jump on board. We will have all their odds and things like that courtesy of them. And we'll put plenty of that stuff out there on Facebook for people on Facebook as well. I am in talks with Dan at PointsBet to see what kind of offers and stuff we can get for anyone during like Melbourne Cup weeks and things like that, with regard to some promotion codes for Supercoach players. So guys, keep an eye out for that one. Any kind of bonuses and things like that we can get through there, I will share them out to all the Facebook groups that are online. So thanks very much, guys. We'll catch you all next week.